The morning rush in Bhopal's coaching district is loud and fast. That routine shatters when 19-year-old Sia is shot at close range. Her heavy engineering textbook clatters to the pavement, stopping the street dead. The crowd splinters into three distinct psychological reactions. Survival instinct drives some to run. Absolute terror paralyzes others. A third group pulls out phones to record a teenager bleeding on the asphalt. The shooter, a young man named Piyush, makes no attempt to escape. He drops his country-made pistol, stands quietly among the panic, and waits for the police to arrest him. As he is led away, Piyush tells officers he was simply saving Sia from a world that didn't understand them. This is the first sign of delusional erotomania, a condition where the mind fabricates a romance so real it justifies violence as an act of protection. The media immediately prints the headline. The killer is in custody, the weapon is on the ground, and the motive is tragically clear. To the public, it is a resolved case of a jilted lover's deadly passion. DCP Sri Krishna and forensic expert Dr. Anirudh arrive to process the sealed, silent crime scene. As they review the preliminary details, a behavioral anomaly stands out. Obsessive killers driven by pure passion rarely surrender with such eerie calm. They typically boast about their violent triumph, or they turn the gun on themselves. Piyush's quiet submission breaks the psychological profile. This points toward a constructed crime, an event engineered specifically to look like a standard crime of passion. It provides investigators with an obvious suspect and a neat confession, designed to close the case quickly. To find the actual truth, the detectives realize they have to look past the obvious evidence to find the missing architect who wrote the script. The initial lab results confirm the obvious. The gunshot residue on Piyush's hands and the angular trajectory of the bullet prove he fired the weapon. But this spatial map reveals a contradiction. Outside the main action zone, investigators found a third set of footprints. By plotting AI-enhanced CCTV camera angles to these prints, they isolate a blind spot where a third person stood quietly, monitoring the execution. The physical evidence proves this was a supervised, orchestrated execution. With a physical shadow confirmed, the investigation pivots to the hidden digital ecosystem surrounding Piyush. Piyush's financial timeline shows years of flatlined activity, until a sudden spike of incoming transactions leading up to the murder, all traced to his former teacher, Arpit. Simultaneously, call data records show Arpit and Piyush's signals converging at the crime scene at 10:27 a.m. Piyush was financially and digitally tethered to a hidden handler until the final second. A narco-analysis of Piyush extracts the mechanism of his control. Under the influence of truth serum, the layers of his delusion peel back, revealing a pattern of intense psychological manipulation. By cross-referencing Arpit's phone records with Sia's history in Kanpur, investigators find a years-old rejection. When Sia turned Arpit down, it fractured his ego, fueling a God complex, a need to reclaim his sense of superiority by deciding who lived and who died. Arpit spent months systematically feeding Piyush's existing delusions. He convinced Piyush that murder was actually salvation, effectively programming a broken man to act as his biological drone to serve his own ego. The ultimate horror of the crime is that Arpit bypassed physical weapons entirely. He weaponized another human's mental illness. Inside the courtroom, the prosecution prepares to unveil the third mind behind the murder. The tension narrows onto Arpit, gripping the witness stand as his carefully constructed narrative is put on trial. The prosecutor lays out the overlapping digital proximity data and the precise financial logs directly in front of Arpit. Cornered by the data, Arpit's ego takes the wheel. He suffers a narcissistic injury, a psychological breakdown triggered when his perceived superiority is challenged. Instead of maintaining his innocence, he begins aggressively boasting about how brilliantly he engineered the entire plot. Arpit successfully manipulated human emotion, but his arrogance left a digital footprint. The cold, hard data broke his illusion. The judge delivers a historic ruling, drawing a legal line. The court declares that love requires freedom and allows a person to grow, while obsession is a violent demand for control. The investigation earns the name Trishna, the Mirage.
Piyush chased a fabricated romance, while Arpit chased the illusion of his own supreme intellect. The digital trails left by Arpit and the psychological patterns mapped by Dr. Anirudh prove that while a mastermind can manipulate a human mind, they cannot yet outrun the data they leave behind.